We have chat this time. Top chat.
Let's wait till somebody comes in. Maybe we have chat. Maybe we don't.
We have a thumbs up, but nobody in here yet. 2 thumbs up, but nobody in here yet.
That's me. Look at that. Oh, I don't think it's going to work.
Oh, come on now.
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Okay. It's working now. All right. Good evening, everybody. So this different place, right? This is actually Dallas' studio for the AHRA Drag Racing History Channel, and I guess we're going to be using it for our Wednesday Night Live tonight.
Well, for now we are.
For now we are.
I think we need to probably have like a tech room, right?
Yeah, we could do it. We could put some tools on the thing over here.
Totally tech then.
Yeah, we can hang a couple of like valve springs or something from the,
right, compression tester.
Yeah. Oh, who do we got here? Numbnuts, what's going on, Brian M? Angel Sierra, it is working. Rude Mopar Dude, what's going on? Dirty Knobs, Dave Larson, Eric the King, greatest of all. Yeah. Let's see. Derek Spivak, I'm going to take out the 4,000 stall and put a 2,500. Why would I take out a 4,000 stall and put 2,500 in? Mike Rundle, Greg McDonald, Craig Cheeto, Mike Control. Welcome, everybody. Steve Pastor, Danny Boyd, Russell Finch.
It's a regular crew. And here's Ari.
Ari. Okay. I feel better now.
Yeah, now we can start timing out people.
I always feel a little like vulnerable.
Until the mods
pop in. Because without the mods, you know what I'm saying? It's like anybody can jump in there and they could say hurtful things.
What did you see? What I mean? There was a guy Sunday night trolling you.
Was there?
And I got on there and I told him, I said, hey, we're trying to contact you. And I put a screen name. I said, we're trying to contact you about your car's extended vehicle warranty.
Fubar is here. Now I really feel secure. You know?
He's going to slay him.
Yeah, now I could just charge forward into the live. Let's see. Derek Spivak, that little 6-cylinder can't hold up.
I don't know what
you say so. I mean, I'm glad we had an expert pop in here, somebody who knows sixes, as thoroughly as Derek Spivak does. Thank you for filling me in on that. I'm gonna have to rethink my entire life at this point. Kuda 70, hurtful things like roll up your windows.
Or I am the
Uncle
shroud.
Squirrel, what's happening, Uncle Squirrel?
Be the shroud.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah. Why don't you read some of it? I'm always reading these things.
Well, Uncle Squirrel saying, personally, I blame squirrels.
Angel, thank you.
Oh, all right. Angel Sears, what do you think of a 400 with a 440 crank or a 451?
That's I've said it many times. That's the combination Chrysler should have done. I don't know why they did the B and the RB and split it up like that. But that 400, the 440 crank and the 400 block with the short connecting rod. Forget about what other people say about this stuff, right? The short connecting rod is what you want in that combination. The 383 400 rod. That's it. It's the best. It's the happiest. It's the most geometrically gruntful thing you can do with a big block Chrysler. I honestly believe once you go above that, right, you're really outrunning the cylinder head capabilities of. I think the 451 is about the perfect size. And people like to build them out to like 600 cubic inches. The head, everything you need to support those huge cubic inches kind of gets out of proportion with the Mopars. So 451 and build it and go make smoke.
Granny's Garage is saying, hey guys, what are your thoughts about electric versus mechanical fuel pumps as far as reliability with today's gas?
I did a whole video on that.
I've actually been pretty fortunate with the mechanical fuel pumps. I haven't had any real problems.
Okay. My experience, is that most vapor lock occurs in the pump or occurs at the pump. Because while the engine may be running at 180 degrees, 190 degrees, whatever it is, that's the coolant temperature. That's the core temperature is. But that doesn't mean that the metal around the engine is that temperature.
No, the external components are generally much higher.
Right.
That's where all the heat's dissipating from.
Right. So that fuel pump could be upwards of 240, 250 degrees. And at that point, it's boiling fuel inside of it. I have found that when you've got especially with the small block Chrysler, for some reason, small block is very susceptible to this. A consistent vapor locking problem, not a hard start problem, but a consistent vapor locking problem. Switching from a mechanical pump to an electric pump fixes 90% of it.
Huh. Dean Brown liked your Magneto show from last night.
That was great, and we got on. We're going to be doing a whole thing with Steve on the Drag Racing History channel next week, so you guys definitely want to check in on that.
Do you use Saginaw 4-speeds in any of your projects? Ask Ramble Content.
I don't, because there's just no reason to. I've used Chrysler 833s, as my go-to 4-speed. Like the Saginaw?
I've never used a Saginaw. I've only had 2 4-speed cars. One is this 63 Special I'm putting together. The other one was I had a 66 Mercury Cyclone, big block Ford. Had a top loader.
Ethan Semerero. Semerero. Yeah, that's it. Well, UT, thanks for all your videos and expertise. Just got my project car to the track. Didn't go as fast as I wanted, but it's going to be a dead consistent ET car. Give it time. Give it time. Nothing, unless you're buying a formula, right? Unless you're buying a formula. If you're constructing your own combination, it's never going to go fast.
It takes forever.
You have to be patient and sort it and do your best to identify its deficiencies. Maybe it doesn't have enough converter. Maybe it doesn't have enough gear. Maybe there's too much converter. Maybe there's too much gear. There's so many variables. And think of it this, right? Blink your eyes, right? Blink your eyes. How long does it take to blink your eyes, right? A second?
Yeah, I think it's like tenths of a second, right?
Right. Okay. That's the difference, right? Just keep working at it. Keep working on it. Don't be discouraged.
So refine.
Just keep going out there and keep trying different things, and you'll see. Sometimes it takes them years to sort out a combination that isn't, like I said, textbook. So like there are certain things that you can put together, right? Certain cars with certain engines and blah, 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 blah. And it's all very predictable. When you go out on your own and you do an unorthodox thing, you're building your own hot rod, it could take forever to sort a car. Just stick with it and you'll get it.
Abel D says, Uncle Tony and Dallas have a Range Rover EFI 3.9 liter engine. Changed amp, coil, cap rollers, runs fine at accelerating, but weak spark at idle and eventually stalls. Can a stretch timing chain cause this? No. And here's what I tell you what I do know. The Rovers, instead of having some like crank trigger pickup where it's on the harmonic dampener, is actually on the flywheel. It's on the flywheel behind the motor. And I think they have like inherent problems with that ignition system in there.
But that won't give it a weak spark.
I think that'll give it a weak signal or like a what do they used to call it with the Ford TFIs, where you get all that noise in there,
right?
Electronic noise.
Oh, and you're thinking that might be affecting the actual output of the coil.
Right, as it's going, well, not necessarily the output of the coil, but as you're trying to sift through all that noise, it's trying to find out where's the actual signal at.
Okay, yeah, something that makes a lot of sense.
So I would check there.
Fubar just put the link to AHRA merch store. So you want AHRA merch?
Yeah. Visit us and get some merch. Tony said today, we just did a video a few minutes ago. It'll probably be posted tomorrow. I had the worst merch pitch in there ever. So and he's already outdone me on merch pitches tonight.
It was pretty rough.
It was bad. Well, I didn't really know what to say when we got to the end. And I'm not going to crop it out intentionally just because it looks so cheesy and bad.
But you got to understand, see, that Dallas, this is why I make the big bucks.
That's why I make no bucks.
You're getting there.
All right. Let's see. We didn't pass anything important. Okay, Granny's Garage. What size carb would you run on a mid or a mild 10-to-1 454 with 411 gears and loose converter, street weekend car only, not a daily by any means?
I would start at 850.
That's exactly what I was thinking, was 850. I mean, the minimum you would put on there would be like the big thermoquad or the big quadrajet, and is like the bare minimum you could put on there.
But even those carburetors, even though they're rated at 800 CFM, they won't flow the same. Remember, all different manufacturers flow their carburetors differently. It's so an 800 Edelbrock and an 800 Holly, two different things. An 800 Edelbrock flowed like a Holly would only be about 750 CFM. So they're not, and the thermoquads and the quadrajets are the same way. They don't flow the same way. So an 800 thermoquad is not the same as an 800 AFB or Edelbrock, and definitely not the same as a Holly. The 454, even a mild one, needs a lot of carburetor to be happy. I would start, I guess, with the 850.
Well, Thrash Metal on Fun Riff says 83 Firebird, 383 Stroker, cassette or CD changer. I'm going to go back and I'm going to say if an 83 Firebird, that was the square or the angular ones. Yeah, it'd have to be cassette, man. All the way a cassette.
Yeah, well, CDs were like 83 Firebird, that was like cutting edge. And if you had an 83 Firebird in 1983, you were like a Gugine. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
you had, you had the hair slicked back and you would ride them like this. You know what I mean? Like,
and it was probably the black with the tan interior.
So you would need the CD changer in order to actually be, with the time.
Well, since it's a changer, why don't you just have both? Have a cassette deck in the head unit and then a CD changer. Where do you all start with picking a converter? That's what I saw.
You have to the converter and the cam are closest are the closest relation, right? So if you spitball on a combination, you want to know where to start with. See, the cam has got to be suited to the engine, right? The type of engine that it is. So like a little wedge is going to have a different characteristic than a big Hemi, let's just say. So, and then from that point, the converter would be matched to the cam. Those are the big, was that about right?
Well, it's hard to start with when you say converter because all of that stuff is intertwined. Car weight, gear, right. Camshaft, purpose of the vehicle. Andy's here, yep. And then Joel Woody said $20.
Thank you, Joel. And what is that? That's a
somebody hugging a trophy. You win.
Is that a dog?
I think it was a samurai dog.
Yeah. Oh, John Wilburn's here again. See, I feel safer.
What was it? What's his handle on you guys' podcast? Big Wilbur.
Big Wilbur.
Big That's Wilbur's right. Here.
Uncle Tony and Big Wilbur in the morning. What was this now? Andy wants to know. Okay, guys, how much weight do you think I can shed from Casper? It's going on the Uncle Tony diet.
Ooh. Oh man, that's a F100, right? It's not even the 150. It's the small 100. And it's a short bed. I bet you can get it down to 3,200 to 3,400 pounds.
I don't know what it weighs now.
Well, it was probably close to 4,000 pounds. Because it's got that, it's a Ford, so it's got that independent weird front suspension deal with the big swing arms and all that. Those are heavy. Those are really heavy. I mean, it's a good looking truck, but they're just not light. I bet it can get it easily down to 3,000 to 3,200 pounds without really getting into it.
Big Wilbur is saying 3,600 pounds easily. So I don't know.
Oh, so Abel D saying, Uncle Tony in Dallas, if you were to get a military truck as a toy for off-roading, what would you get? Vintage World War II or modern trucks? Ooh, I'd stay away from the vintage stuff because you just can't afford to repair it.
Yeah, but it's rugged.
All right. So that a vintage World War II one, if you've never been in the military, okay, the trucks that I was driving in the Navy in the 2000s were literally from Vietnam era trucks. Okay. And they literally had like a canvas seat and a floor. That was all you had. And so I could only imagine a World War II one is about as close as you're going to get to a wagon with behind a horse. I mean, it's literally solid steel, heavy duty, no suspension, no, what do they call it? NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness considered at all. But my favorite one for the government trucks was they had a Blazer. It was a K5 Blazer. It had 1-ton axles in it. It was like a Dana 60 in the front and 14 bolt in the rear. And I can't want to, it was like a CUCCV or something like that. But they also made half-ton trucks out of that, and they had an ambulance like that. And they came with 6.2 diesels.
Well, Tom Hughes is saying modern military has a much better power and suspension travel to 2.5 and 5 tons of dogs. I mean, he's saying a lot there because I've driven vintage like military type vehicles, and there is nothing there. I mean,
they got no power,
no power at all. So it's
the deuce and a half. The deuce and a halfs that we had was the one neat thing about them was they were what they called a multi-fuel, and you could literally put vegetable oil in it or diesel fuel or kerosene, and a sucker'd run down the road no problem.
Let's see. Eureka 7-Wave, what do you think the foil insulation underneath the B motors was used for? Sound. It'll make a howl because the valley pan is just it's a sheet of tin, right? So as the engine is running, it'll howl and whatnot. So they stuck that insulation between the two to quiet that down.
Oh, Dankin says my 300 cubic inch Buick always bogs and makes a weird spark knock. Might be a lift or tap noise. Should I put nitrous on it? Oh man, if it's a lean bog, no. Yeah, I just actually finished a 300 cubic inch Buick yesterday. It's an animal, but I'd fix that bog before you put nitrous on it. Period.
Yeah. Or you'll find out why it's doing everything.
It sounds like to me if it's doing a spark knock deal, it's going lean, right?
Yeah.
And then it's spark knocking because it's lean. I would definitely figure out what that situation is.
And this isn't tech, but I gotta answer this anyway. Shuffle the clips. Do you miss New York at all? Not even the slightest. I've been in Tennessee for 18 years. We're just talking about this afternoon. I've been here for 18, going on 19 years. From the instant I got here, New York was dead to me, like it never even existed. So no, I don't miss it. I don't miss it or anything about it.
Oh, John Wilburn says, Tony and Dallas, your top 3 automotive things that should never have been invented. Oh, I think I could probably nail 2 pretty easy. The third one I might have a hard time coming up with.
I'm trying to think of something that never should have been invented.
Lean burn.
Was that was lean burn by itself an invention, or was because lean burn is the first step towards computerized control?
Yeah, I guess it would be computer controlled carburetors, or it'd be computer controlled automotive crap.
Well, I mean, it has its plus and its minuses. I'm not a computer guy, but I do understand their value. I understand, you know what I mean?
I like the fuel economy that EFI and electronic control gives you. I don't like having to. It's so hard to freaking hot rod one, especially when it's one of the older archaic computers. You can only go so far, and then the thing just freaks out. And then there's no like, hey, I'm a little bit freaked out. It's like I'm fucking dead, and I'm a cockroach upside down with my legs in the air, kind of thing.
I'm trying to come up with at least one thing for that 3 that he's talking about. Top 3 automotive things that never should have been invented. I can't think of anything that's been invented that doesn't really have a specific purpose.
Side specific lug nuts. Right, rotational direction lug nuts, like early GMs to like 63.
Yeah,
Chryslers were that way too, right?
70.
Oh man, I don't know how many more.
Drive-by-wire is. But again, see, is that a specific invention, or does that fall under the heading of computerized controls and the evolution of? So I don't know. I can't even really think about that. I'll come back to it. Something will pop in my head. Stagger proof. UT, what is the right procedure for adjusting kickdown linkage on a 440? Same as adjusting kickdown linkage on any Chrysler engine. Open the throttle all the way. Have the throttle all the way open. Okay. Then push the kickdown, right? The throttle position rod, push that all the way back as far as it'll go. Now adjust that so that it fits. It's bottomed out at the same time that the throttle is bottomed out. Okay. That's the adjustment. Then let it come forward.
I got one here. Okay. Joshua Hayes says 56 Buick, keep the 322 nailhead or LS swap. Joshua, there's two different animals there completely. The 322 isn't going to have a lot of beans, but god damn, is it one of the sexiest fucking motors ever made, right? I mean, they look good. And then if you go with the LS, dude, man, they run great. But when you open the hood, there's no sex appeal. People are going to walk to the next car, right? It's like you trade one for the other. I'd go with the nailhead and I'd see if I could stick something behind it like a 5-speed, like a manual 5-speed.
If it's a cruiser, okay, if this is just like a cruiser, you're not trying to like rotate the earth or go drag racing with it, right? If it's just a cruiser, absolutely I would keep the nailhead in it. Because A, the thing survived all of its years with the engine, it was born with intact. No reason to, to upset that, right? B, those early nailheads are the smoothest, most happiest engines. You can idle that thing down to where you can see the fan belt. You can watch the fan blades go like this.
Yeah, like 400 RPM.
Yeah, idle down like 400 RPM, okay? And put a glass of water on top of it and it won't be a ripple. So it's like, you get some convenience and you get a bunch of power with an LS swap, but you lose so much of the character,
the curb
and the
appeal.
Things that made those cars special.
Oh,
so
and they sound so good.
I would leave the 422 or the 322. And if you really need to make power, if it's a power thing, right? Then put a turbocharger, put a supercharger on, do something.
I would definitely do that. Buick turbocharged nailhead, and they actually got stopped for the program. I'd see if I'd go on a limb and I would turbocharge that nailhead.
Oh, seatbelt buzzer. Okay, see, these guys are okay. They're on it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're talking about
with that seatbelt buzzers and seatbelt interlocks. I would say, yeah, definitely.
I'll tell you one thing that I wish would have never been uninvented.
What's that?
You remember, the early Mopars, like 67, 68 Barracuda. I want to say it was a 67 and then 68 went away. But in the fender, they had a round circular turn signal light.
Okay.
And then it went to like in the bumper, and that went away, something like that. But you remember the small round circular turn signal lights?
Yeah.
Those look so good, especially on certain cars.
I'll tell you something that freaks me out. Okay, that I kind of wish they had never invented. Right, the airbag.
Oh yeah, what if it goes off and takes your teeth out?
I don't even worry about the teeth. So I mean, I've been daily driving 1960s, 1970s cars forever, right? So the one Actuator that I've got right now is a 98, and it's got an airbag in it. And it's always in my mind as I'm driving the car, because I like to keep a hand on top of the wheel, And if that thing should go off, bam! You know what I'm saying? I would rather take my chances.
Yeah. I got you. That thing would be. And you've heard the horror stories where the women put their feet up on the dashboard, and then they get in an accident, and the airbag breaks their legs. So, what is it? Easy's Automotive. Hey, Uncle Tony, is Richard Holdner still planning to build a 318 with rods and pistons reverse swap to prove once and for all that it makes power?
I have no idea. He was talking about that like a couple of months ago. And I have no idea.
He chimed in yesterday on Mañante's live,
Okay.
And he said he's still planning on doing it.
Okay, well, there you go. Uninvented center air conditioning vent. Cool guy's balls. Bring that back under the steering wheel.
I'll tell you what, something that should have been uninvented. You remember when they used to have the vents in the kick panels, and like you could actually roll down the windows, open those vents, and you didn't even need AC?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that was great. I don't know why they got rid of it. Was it just a rusting issue?
Let's see. Alan says, I'm okay with airbags, but should probably make sure my 25-year-old one is disabled. I keep putting that off.
Well, I was always afraid when you get mad in traffic and you smack the wheel, you're like, oh, crap, maybe I shouldn't have done that before the sucker goes off my face.
Says, Virginia state troopers lost a hand shutting off a wrecked car's engine when the airbag deployed well after the wreck. Yeah, they're hairy.
This is literally a loaded gun pointed at your face, right?
I mean, I guess if you're the average person and you're not car aware, you know what I mean, and you haven't like grown up crashing and wrecking things and being on fire and all these other things, that maybe an airbag
Oh,
probably is a good thing, you know, because you're oblivious. You're
Peter
just oblivious.
Kovacs brings up something. Fender mounted turn signal indicators are cool. That's right. And you remember what was the Mopar one where if you were going down the road, they had the indicator, and if you were getting decent fuel economy, that light would come on.
Yeah, yeah.
That was cool.
That was in the 70s, the middle 70s. Let's see.
Doug Narden says, "How about newer cars that don't have a spare tire or tools at all? They expect you to call it AAA."
Yeah.
That's being cheap, is what that is, and lazy.
Well, it's not, yeah, but that's it. That the average person today is not like us.
Well, I know they
You know,
wouldn't change a
we're the
tire.
exception. Our crowd here, and you and I, we're the exception to the
I
rule.
see it all the time. You go down the interstate, and there's somebody with literally a tire changing shop, changing the tire on their car while they're standing there on the cell phone. It's like, oh my god. Yeah, that's true. This guy right here, PTSHYU2. What about diesel exhaust fluid? It's been out for at least 10 years and still a mess.
You see, that was a bonus to the pig farmers of America. Just collect all that piss and we'll buy it off you. That's just. Worst invention is plastic crap. Not necessarily. It saved a lot of weight, made a lot of things possible that weren't really possible without the plastics. So,
well, and this guy says here, some of the new cars have fix-a-flat instead of a spare.
Yep.
And I remember seeing that.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
My dad had a '79 Monza, and instead of it being that narrow spare, it was the really wide, short one.
Yep.
But it had a can of fix-a-flat to
Yeah,
air it up.
Chrysler did that first in 1970 with the Barracudas and the Challengers.
Did they?
A space saver spare. Mike Smith, Tony, what's your opinion of running a solid roller in Street Strip 340? The only way to go, as far as I'm concerned, at this stage of the game, with all of the stuff that's going on, that's the only way to go.
If you would have asked that question about a month ago, you might have got a completely different answer.
That's the truth. But I've got bad hydraulic rollers in an engine right now, and I didn't think it was possible to have them just go away like that. But yeah, sure enough, solid roller, and it's happening. It's not just me. This is, I mean, do a little research. It's like an epidemic. So yeah, solid roller, only way to fly.
All right. Joe Dirt Daytona, huh? Okay.
Electric windows work great until they break, yeah, but they're pretty easy to fix. I can't even answer that. Zip Tie Jedi, what's your guys' opinion on the small block Chevy?
It's just like any other motor. I mean, they're pretty decent. I mean, there's a reason why there's a billion people.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why they've been around for forever in one incarnation or another, and they were the most popular. They work. They're good motors. There's nothing to not like about a small block Chevy. Like, you can't say anything bad about a small block Chevy. And if you're a Mopar guy, especially if you're a Mopar guy, a big block Mopar guy specifically, you really can't say anything bad about a small block Chevy, because the B engine cylinder head is a direct copy of the small block Chevy cylinder head. So
winner chicken dinner right here.
What's that?
Vega aluminum block POS.
But that wasn't really an invention. That was just an evolution. Like the engine,
okay, fair enough.
The engine was the invention, and that's just a step in the evolution. So the question was inventions.
Right.
But yeah, if you're a big block Mopar guy, understand that your whole life you've been messing around with a small block Chevy with a big block underneath it.
Ronnie Brown wants to know, did you ever get a response from large cam manufacturer on the lifter problems?
Nope, never heard a word from him. That would be your friend.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm sure he didn't manufacture them, but Joshua Hayes says thanks for the advice with the 56. I haven't heard back from him either. Where can I find you or the shop? We're in Tennessee. We're in Murfreesboro. Let's see.
Joseph PVR, I want to get something big and heavy that could get out of a mob of protesters.
Blame Dallas. Yeah, it wasn't my problem. It wasn't even. I didn't even know Tony when he got the lifters.
Yeah, you did.
No,
Oh,
no,
yeah, right.
I helped you out with the converter.
That's right. Michael Benolil. Tony, I've always been afraid of solid lifters cam. How often do the valves need to be adjusted? Depends. See, that depends a lot. I mean, a stock-ish cam with stock-ish valve springs, I mean, you can go 20, 30, 40,000 miles.
Well, what was the factory adjustment? It was an interval of 30,000, right?
Was it? I don't even know.
I think so, something like that. Because it was, I thought it was, you adjusted the points, and on the third time, then you would.
Well, as a perpetual tinkerer,
Yeah, you always had the hood.
I've always had the hood open. I've always got a valve cover off. I'm always messing around, which is why I set all my car. You notice if you ever look at any car that I put together for myself, there's nothing in the way of valve covers.
Well, what I also noticed is all the cars that you always have always have the hood open. It's like I don't have to open the hood if I just leave it open.
Right, exactly. Always ready to dive in. So I'm the wrong person to ask about maintenance intervals because I'm just always tinkering around. But no, don't be afraid of it. If it's just a regular daily driver type or a mild type of thing with a stockish cam, stockish valve springs, you go a lot of mileage.
Yeah. Anybody on here got a K code Mustang? If they got the K code Mustang,
those are all solids.
What was the maintenance interval for adjusting the lash on those? I think it was like 30,000. I know on my race car, I do it every couple of months. And that's it.
Unfinished projects is I heard that there was a vehicle with the starter under the intake manifold.
Oh yeah,
it's called the Caddy North Star.
Yeah.
And actually, if I'm not mistaken, other manufacturers started doing that too. There's a couple of different.
Toyota, I think, did, or Lexus, or somebody. And
yeah, but the first one to do that, and I remember how irate and perplexed, and how I says, now is the time for me to get out of this business forever. The first one of those I saw was on a Caddy North Star.
And the sad part was that Caddy North Star had the potential to be badass because it was a direct descendant of the Quad 4 when it came out.
Well, here's the funny thing, right? I remember the first time I encountered that, and this was in the middle 90s, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a customer bring in a car, right? And you could hear it was the starter, right? Fresh battery, but you could hear the starter, right? So, to make a long story short, he had brought it to someplace and told me he needed a starter, and it was going to be $1,000 to change the starter.
Okay.
Right? And I says, that is absurd. I says, just bring me the car, right?
I'll do it for you for $200.
I didn't give him a price. I'm not that stupid, right? But I says, just bring me the car. I says, $1,000 change the starter is absolutely absurd. So he brings me the car, and I run down to the parts store, and I grab the starter, and I climb underneath it,
And there's no starter.
There's the starter. I'm looking, and those cars are packed underneath. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking, and I go all different angles. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes, and it wasn't like the internet wasn't the thing yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? So finally, I ran back down to the parts store. I says, I can't find where this thing goes. Right? It goes in the intake manifold.
They're like, oh, did you start working on cars last week?
Don't do that to me. I'm not intake, right? It doesn't go in the intake manifold. Yeah. It goes under the intake manifold. That was the North Star, my first experience with that.
Lout Burns says Boss 302 every year or 12,000 miles, I think the book says. So 12,000 miles, adjust the lash, right? Some of the magazines hyped up the North Star. The North Star actually, I think was it the North Star that they were, or it was the Aurora V8? That's what they were using in an IndyCar, right?
Yeah.
When it came out.
Some have starter bolts inside the bell housing. Yeah, I know. Please. Okay. Oh. Yeah, there's something that never should have been invented. I got my number one thing that never should have been invented.
What's that?
That start-stop feature.
Oh yeah, that sucks. I do not like. And every vehicle that I know that somebody has it, they got it turned off, right? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to even drive with it on. It just burns the starter up. Yeah, that is pretty dumb. But is that just evolution of the starter?
No, that's a separate concept.
I know. It was meant for saving fuel economy is all it was. Saving fuel.
The North Star ran good, but the head bolt, yeah, they had head bolt issues. Those what do they call them, time starts. That was and then the North Star was actually the first engine I ever rebuilt that you couldn't reuse the head bolts.
Oh,
And
torque to
it was the
yields.
first torque to yield. I'm like, what? What kind of commie space alien weird thing is this? Who came up with this?
I'm sure it was like, oh, they're just doing that to dig in my pocket, right?
Well, they
Yeah,
did just do that to dig in your pocket.
exactly.
There's absolutely no reason on earth.
Well, they could have spent 3 cents more each fucking bolt, and you could have reused it for the life of the vehicle, right?
Nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody can justify torque to yield bolts to me. It just cannot be justified.
All right. Well, Joshua Hayes is asking again, last question for his 56 Buick. If not LS, any better nail heads? That's a good question. So if you're looking for all out power, the 425 is the king. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
A lot for it.
But the one I always liked that was I guess the unsung hero. In 66, they made 401 nail heads that had a BOP bell housing bolt pattern where you could put a regular turbo 400 on the back of them suckers, and it wasn't proprietary by itself, right? But a 401 is a good motor. It'll get you down the road pretty easy, especially in that 56 Buick. Skip shift on the T56 6-speed.
Yeah, that was another.
That's pretty dumb. I don't know why they did that. I do remember that.
I was wrong. I got one of those to road test for Vet Magazine. I used to be the technical editor for Vet Magazine, and I got one of those, and I will never forget that thing like making its own way. Whoa! What?
Yeah. Well, no, this guy's saying there you go. The worst one to date is torque to yield head bolts.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look at it. It did in the Ford 6-liter diesel, right? Wasn't that the torque to yields that was causing all the big problems?
I don't know. So just torque to yield is just wrong. Frenchman, how do you hop up a 258 AMC 6? Stay tuned because they're going to be doing a 4.0 Jeep, which is the same essential motor. Harry Australia, good day from Adelaide. What do you think about running a hydraulic roller camshaft with solid roller lifters on a small block Mopar? I'm exactly
good
what
idea.
I'm going to do. Yep. I think it's just fine.
Yeah.
Lash it, of course, but yeah, absolutely.
I don't like reusing head bolts or studs.
In the block is a different deal. I don't know why.
I reuse the hell out of head bolts.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many cycles I've put head bolts through and never had a problem.
Matt S is saying aluminum heads on diesels are a big warp issue, right? So worst invention on those. I think EGR and all that emissions crap they put on them is what ruined all the diesels.
Tom Hughes says, no, the Ford wasn't a torque to yield problem. The valves worked bad. Okay. Jeremy Wampler, Dallas, you mentioned BOP. When and where are they compatible with Chevy? Set in stone info is hard to find. Well, BOP is never compatible with Chevy. That's why you have Chevy and then BOP.
Right. So you had 2 different bell housing bolt patterns. Well, yeah, early years. Well, okay. I'm sorry. I'll go back some. There's actually 3 different bell housing bolt patterns. You had Chevrolet by itself. Then you had Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Cadillac. And then you had Buick Nailhead, right? Well, in 64, they got smart. 66, they got smart. And they put Buick in with Olds, Cadillac, 65. And Pontiac. 65?
65.
Okay. 65. So then you had Chevrolet, Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac as a whole separate group by themselves. But Chevrolet was the only one by themselves, out there. Then later in the 80s, they got smart and they started making universal bell housing bolt patterns on turbo 350s and 204R. 700 R4 only came in Chevrolet pattern. Then it got even more stupid. Then we went to a 60-degree V6 bell housing. So then you got like Cadillac North Star has that stupid bell housing. There's some LSs that have it. The V6 Buick got it.
Sideways motors have that.
Yeah. And then they started mounting the sideways motors longitudinally.
Right.
So it's like, it's insane. But the nailheads, most of the nailheads are by themselves.
Darkstar says padded toilet seats. Yeah, that's
Only
weird.
seat to have.
That's weird.
Variable valve timing. You think that was a bad invention? I don't think so.
No, I mean it's not something I'm a big fan of because it kind of goes away from my basic things. But I see what
Wayne
absolutely has a place.
Wayne says OptiSpark. That one was pretty dumb, but it's not terrible. You see a lot of those cars with 200,000 miles on them. You know, that like if I was to pick something that was just an absolute horrible idea, man, what ruined a lot of cars early? A lot of them early. You know, was it something like EGR or
Choke stuff ruined a lot of cars
like
early.
choke pull-offs?
Yeah, a lot of the.
Oh, I know. The valves in the exhaust that forced the exhaust up over the heat risers, right?
Yeah, they would stick.
Oh,
They would stick closed or they would
freeze
stick
up.
open. But the
Oh, plastic timing gears is a good one too.
yeah, I would say out of that things. Things that sent more cars to the junkyard early back in the day. It gave carburetors a really bad name. Heat tube chokes.
The heat tube chokes, really?
Heat tube chokes. Yeah,
Because
because
they plug up with carbon, right?
it's not even that. They usually rot.
Oh, they rust.
They rot, they rust, they break off, and the choke never opens. And the driver, who's oblivious, runs it around for
right.
forever.
I'm getting 4 miles a
I get
gallon
4
now.
miles a gallon, right? Yeah.
This
Like,
thing's
they
got
go
no
up, they
power.
go, right? I would say choke pull-offs and heat tube choke.
That's pretty bad. Or, and this guy brings up a good one, the modular Fords with the plug issues, where the plugs would stick in the head or blow them out.
That's like most street Hemis. Most street Hemis got a really bad name because they ran like shit. But they ran like shit because they had that heat tube exhaust and or choke, and they would rot like the car would be like 2 years old, and it would be all gone and broken. And so they're driving around with the choke closed on that back carburetor and that for the most part for the street Hemi. I mean, you hear stories about people where it just wouldn't run for anything. That was usually it.
They said, MXIS for me, Mixus for me says plastic intake gaskets.
Yeah.
I had those Vortec Chevy trucks, and every freaking one of them at 70,000, I was pulling off the intake, right?
Yep. It sucks in the plastic, the lower part of the
right.
plastic.
And it doesn't handle the heat cycles.
Right. Let's see. Plastic oil pans on big trucks. I don't think an oil pan should ever be plastic.
Did they make plastic oil pans on a full-size truck?
I remember the first aluminum oil pan I came across, a cast aluminum oil pan. It was a normal thing, like in the 70s, the 80s, and until like the early 90s. That if you had to jack the motor up, change the motor mount, or do whatever you have to do,
jack the pan.
You put your jack under the pan, you give it a couple of, if you're gentle with it, you don't hurt anything.
Right.
I had somebody bring me a quad 4, and I had to get in there, get off the water pump on those things. Remember the water pump on the quad 4s, the Oldsmobile quad 4s?
Was it bad? Was it a bad spot?
The timing change. Yeah, it was an impossible spot. And put the jack under the oil pan.
Oh, it was cast aluminum.
Yeah, cast aluminum. I wasn't expecting it.
Variable duration lifters. You said they were no good. Can you explain? Ted Jimenez.
I never said they weren't good. I just said I never used them.
Rhodes lifters.
Yeah,
Rhodes lifters. They're not bad. There was a lot of people used them, especially through the 70s and early 80s.
Now, on the soft hydraulic rollers that I'm having a problem with on my engine here, it's not even that part of it because they bleed down real quick, like a Rhodes lifter. A Rhodes lifter, as soon as it sits, it'll bleed right down, and because it's the amount of stiffness in the lifter is supposed to be dictated by oil pressure, which is dictated by RPM. But the problem I'm having with these is that one of them isn't acting. They're all acting like a Rhodes lifter, but one of them is just dead bottomed out, like it's not
like,
coming up.
Like the hole that's drilled in the lifter for bleed down is like 800 thousandths too big, right? Big Wilbur saying, I've got it. GM central port fuel injection with plastic tubing under the intake. Is that the octopus that he's talking about?
Yeah.
Because that's what was on those Chevy trucks. They
Yeah.
were freaking horrible.
That was the Vortec.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a troll. Where's the troll?
Oh,
All right. Oh, nice troll.
A racist troll too.
Those are the best kind.
His name was actually Troll. How did we not catch that guy?
I
mean, even Dakota, who was timed out, would have been asleep, caught that guy.
They're on it.
EPA is the worst invention for vehicles. EPA. That's a pretty good one. Troll, how is Troll in here? Being racist again.
Zero data. Did any auto manufacturer use a Hearst mystery shifter as a factory equipment?
What's a mystery shifter?
I don't know. Remind me.
I know Hearst shifters that were used for factory equipment. Right? Didn't Oldsmobile Hearst Olds came with a Hearst shifter? That's how they got the name, right?
Tom Muse is saying, Dallas and Tony, I'll be making a video on exactly what the lifters are failing. I'm going to do it right now. Make sure you catch it tomorrow. Okay, that sounds good.
I'd love to see what he's got.
Yes, hold on. Solar deactivation. Yeah,
That one's
another
pretty
one.
poo.
Let's see. Hopefully Kathy would be working on. She'd be having a meltdown.
Oh, more trolls.
Boy, these guys are right, just on it. Food bars, just bam.
I know.
Doris Spark. Doris Spark was good. Mike Smith, you programmed the deactivation on your Hemi. You know, you got to go back to the 70s with the Caddies were the first ones to have that cylinder deactivation, the 468 motor, and that was Caddy General Motors through Cadillac was like they went too far with the technology. They tried too hard, right? So you had like digital fuel injection on the Caddies along with that cylinder deactivation in like 1978, 1979. And it just wasn't there yet. The technology was not there yet.
Bob Ganshaw says worst invention, trolling.
I like the trolls.
I don't like when the troll's a racist jerk. All right.
Gwen Stefani.
Damn you, Gwen. I was just watching you on whatever that lame show is that you're on. Ford Pinto fuel tanks.
UT, did the lightning shifters on our Hearst Olds ever really used? You know something? I've never driven one of those.
They work. They do work.
They do. I looked at it and I was like, I've had the opportunity to drive stuff like that, and it was like, I just don't want to soil myself with that whole lightning rod thing. So I never drove one. Vince Rencher hates metric bolts. I'm okay with metric bolts. I'm fine with them. I don't like the third pitch. I don't know why you got to have a third pitch. Fine and coarse isn't enough. You have to have that third
in between.
Right.
Ford variable Venturi carburetors. Those are pretty poop. I had two of them.
Yeah.
Oh, and when they're off, you just can't get the dang thing right. Man, I can hardly even read this anymore.
Mid-engine Corvette.
Yeah, wait till you see what the price of one of those shifters is now. The lightning rods, they're like $600-700 for one of them shifters.
Oh yeah, I sold one on eBay. So I don't remember how I got. I bought a car, bought a parts car, whatever it was, and I ended up with this lightning rod shifter. And I was like, is anybody gonna want this? This is about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I threw it on eBay and it went for like $500.
Yeah, I was trying to find one. I had an 87 Monte Carlo Super Sport and I wanted to get one of those shifters and put it in there.
Oh, no. I was compelled to try to talk this guy out of it.
You know what I mean? Really?
You don't really want to buy this thing for that money. You have that kind of money, do you?
Oh, no, I would have never paid $500. That's ludicrous. But I mean, I wanted one for my Monte Carlo and I noticed, I'll get on eBay. How expensive can they be? I mean, $50-60 because I'd seen them in cars before at the junkyard and stuff. And I'm like, No problem. Well, them suckers were going $500-600.
Where is the axe? Full bar is right here, man. He's right here. The Carter one barrel on the Ford 300 had a terrible lifespan. It was that heat choke, those Ford 300s, that heat tube, the exhaust, the choke heat tube. That's like number one engine that had a problem with that.
Brad G says the worst is a seatbelt that isn't attached to the headliner.
I have no idea what that means.
Not me neither. 10% ethanol fuel? Really?
It doesn't bother me. Need metal. Thank you, sir. What makes me scream are lug nuts on newer trucks. You need 21 millimeter, 22 millimeter, 7/8 depending on the vehicle. Tony slow mode the chat. I don't really know how you do that. Let's see.
We're both like not computer savvy here.
I'm afraid to knock this thing out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even. I don't know how. Zero. I don't know how to put it in slow motion. Let's see.
Steering wheel rim push to honk. I think the invention I think that should still be here is, well, see, there's gasoline direct injection. No, it's going to take a while to get that ironed out, but it will work good. You remember how the T-Bird used to have that movable steering wheel side to side?
Yep.
That thing should have stuck around. That was cool.
Except it was vacuum operated.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and they worked for a couple of years, but a lot of Fords found themselves in the junkyard because those things would take a dump.
Yeah. Ford turn signal lever as a horn button. Yeah, that sucked. But that was only, what, 80s Fords? Early 80s? I can't register my 76 GMC Sierra. Any suggestions? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say that you're in California and it wasn't in INOP, right? Have you ever heard this kind of crap?
I've heard something. It rings a bell, but I don't really pay attention to it.
So if you take a vehicle off the road and you don't register it as INOP,
okay,
California don't get any taxes, right? They nail you for every year that thing sat without having a license plate on it. So when you go in and register it, it might be like $4,000 of INOP fees.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. So here's how I used to get around that crap. I'd find these vehicles because you could get them cheap as dirt, right? People would sell them for $200.
Bring them out of state, register them.
I'd take it right over to Arizona, and because I was military, I would go, "Oh, I'm non-resident military. I'm stationed over in Yuma." They'll freaking cut you a license or cut you a new title and registration. And you drive it right back over to California and say, "Hey, I'm here to register my vehicle at my duty station."
Okay. What about Titius too? I can't even pronounce that name. What about biodegradable wiring harnesses?
Oh, that was Mercedes.
No, it was Ford.
Oh, Mercedes did it too.
Ford did that in the middle 80s, right? They would literally the wiring harnesses would just disintegrate
in front of your eyes. My T-Bird was like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The insulation would just, you touch it and it would just fall off, like it wasn't even attached to the wire.
Yeah. The Mercedes that we're building as a Lemons car, that's exactly what the problem was in that car. Was the harness literally was like falling apart. It was biodegradable, and it's like, dude, who the hell came up with the plan of making soy-based insulation on wiring?
Yeah, Ford did that first in like, I want to say like 1983, 1984, 1985. It was for a few years. And I mean, you're talking about like cars that were like they didn't even have their first scratches yet. And the wiring harnesses were just in total meltdown mode.
I remember going to the junkyard and you'd see them where the harness caught on fire. Right? Because all the wiring would rub on each other.
At the time, I ran a shop out of my house. This was back on Staten Island, and there was a Ford dealer on Richmond Avenue. And they were sending me cars to do harness jobs on because they were so backed up with their own dealership, with their only.
Yeah, but the 80s harnesses were so terrible because it's like 400 different connectors. It wasn't simple going through the firewall. Mine had 3 different places that went through the firewall.
Yeah, but when you do enough of them,
Oh yeah, you could probably get pretty good at them.
I'd knock a whole car, like a dash harness on a typical Ford of the day. I'd knock it out in like 4 hours.
Oh wow. Scavenging extra power out of a Ford 302 roller engines. Michael Roberts, that's one of my favorite engines. Any ideas on scavenging extra power out of a Ford 302 roller engine? If you're using all factory parts, my favorite recipe used to be GT40P heads, cut the guides down, put an E-cam in it, and 171 Cobra roller rockers, and you were almost untouchable. You were a boulevard badass at that point. But what about you? Anything? Any idea? 302 roller cam motors?
I'll go with that. Zero says this car still has all the original smog shit. PCV valve. I love PCV valves. Nobody can ever tell me anything bad about a PCV valve.
Hey, I need to ask you a question about something. When you had road draft tubes,
Yeah,
were they coming directly out of the crankcase?
came out of the valve cover.
Out of the valve cover?
Came out of the top of the valve cover, where the breather usually is where the road draft tube would plug in.
Okay.
And it would go down, and it was usually right alongside like the transmission, like right in the flywheel area.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Electric under dash actuator's worst invention. Yeah, I would agree with it. It says Ralph Nader's parents, but I think them Nader bumpers. Oh,
the actuators, Matt. The actuators themselves, I find that they're okay. Like the actuators never bother me. It's what they're actuating that always fails, right? That's a pain in the ass. So the actuator goes bad, and generally it's two 8mm bolts or 3 8mm bolts. Boom, boom. You know what I mean? You got to do a little, snake dance to get underneath it in the dashboard. That's all fine. But it's usually the stuff that the actuator is operating that's the real pain in the ass, where you got to pull the whole friggin' dashboard out of the car to get it to heater box and everything else. So.
Well, Abel D's asking.
Blend doors, right?
Yeah, that was just actually going to say the blend doors. That's my Suburban, that square body, the blend door on that. Oh, worst customer complaint story.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. GM nylon gear teeth. They all had nylon gear teeth
in the 70s, right?
Yeah, that was a common thing with all of the manufacturers.
Yeah, they have nylon gears in them so you couldn't hear the timing chain.
Right.
But then they put a solid fucking motor mount.
Jason Ciccaroni, love the channel, Tony. Really digging the Slant 6 Miata. I was just cruising around with it today.
You guys ever mess with the Chevy 366 tall deck big blocks? I threw one in an 82 C20, and I'm surprised at how well it runs. I've actually heard about guys doing that.
I mean, they're good running motors. There's nothing wrong with them.
They make good torque, and they're not bad on fuel for what they are. And I imagine you put them in a lighter truck, and they're probably pretty dang decent.
You just don't want a hot rod one. The bottom line is it just isn't enough bore to make.
It's the shroud of valves on it all the time.
But what makes a good engine, a good overall engine, and what makes a hot rod engine aren't necessarily the same thing. And those 366 Chevys are fine. Just like the 361 Mopars, people are like, oh, I can't make any power with it. You're not supposed to. It's just a good running motor. Just throw it in your car and drive it to the road and enjoy it.
Not everything's a race car. Some of them were meant to go get groceries, believe it or not. Pick up the kids from school. There's nothing wrong with a small cubic inch engine. Most guys take them out and throw them away.
Jim Jungle says the 366 has heavy 4-ring pistons. Yeah.
Does it really?
Do all of them do? I think some of them are 3-ring. I don't think they're all that 4-ring.
I know there was a bazillion farm trucks and a lot of garbage trucks had a big block Chevrolet, that 366 or some 427 tall deck.
Well, just about every 360s, every big block Chevy you come across, like a scrapyard or boneyard, they're almost always 366s.
Really? Oh, the 80 Cadillac Seville diesel. No, but I remember the Oldsmobile diesel.
Yeah.
Oh man, those things were in the junkyard, and they might be like a 4-year-old car. I wish I would have had one today because then nobody would require you to smog it.
Transmission pins and gas tanks without a drain plug. So this isn't really about the worst inventions. This is more about our pet peeves.
Yeah,
This is
let's
about our
bitch about the
mechanical
things we
pet
hate.
peeves. And yeah, I agree with that, man. Absolutely.
The seatbelt retractor and the door frame. Oh, are you talking about like the ones that go above? Like, remember the ones that used to go up the door rail? The seatbelts?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Like, a lot of the imports had that.
Right,
I had a Dodge Colt that had that.
I remember it in the 90s because those cars were probably early 90s. So it'd be like late 90s. Everybody would get in their car and you'd see half a seat, well, not even half the seat, but just the end go up the door frame because they never wore the seatbelt. Because
That's from the early 80s.
Was it early 80s?
Early 80s. The first car I remember having that was a Ford Granada.
Granada had the electric seatbelt thing?
Yep.
Oh, man. I could see Escort or Tempo, yeah. But, man, I just remember seeing those things run